Well, welcome back. You know, if it isn't law, it's sports from the old medicine on the news desk. As we told you earlier in the newscast, the news on Reggie Lewis is just sensational today. Doctors at Brigham and Women's Hospital, after a week of extensive testing, they say that Reggie Lewis's heart is fine and that he is not suffering from cardiomyopathy. Instead, he has a neurological condition that, treated with medication, will allow the Celtics captain to return to the team next season. This has been a bizarre, to say the least, and confusing story that included a middle-of-the-night transfer of hospitals, a blue-ribbon medical panel, and heavy criticism of the Celtics front office.
We will make sure that as he is followed through practice and begins to start playing competitively again, that it will be perfectly safe for him to be as active as he wants to on the court. That is our responsibility.
Reggie Lewis has been to hell and back since he went down 11 days ago. But the key thing, as of today, is he's back.
We did so many stress tests on Mr. Lewis over the last week, he probably thinks this is a fitness club rather than a hospital. Based upon the normal stress echo, the normal stress thallium, the normal exercise test, and the normal MRI, we can conclude that he has a normal heart. That is, we have proved a negative, that he does not have cardiomyopathy.
Well, when we received the first diagnosis, we said that, well, what we should do is get a second opinion, and you know, that's what we did. So, I mean, once you receive, you know, a diagnosis from a physician, then we decided that that's when we wanted to get a second opinion. And that's what we did immediately.
I was aware of the data that had been gathered at the New England Baptist Hospital prior to his departure, and from a medical point of view, I was not concerned at all about the medical transfer, about the means of transfer. I did not think his life was in jeopardy at all.
So much time with a healthy heart. That's what he told us.
Only days ago, Reggie Lewis's basketball future had been written off. Today, the diagnosis and prognosis couldn't be better.
I can honestly say that the treatment that I've had from both hospital, New England Baptist and Brigham and Women, has been excellent. The doctors and all the nurses, the care has just been tremendous. And I'm just glad that it's finally come to an end.
It's a little too soon to call this a happy ending, but today's news certainly is a big, giant step toward one.
Bye-bye.
Oh, if you want a good quote from me, it says, I couldn't be happier. I mean, the Celtics are just real pleased with everything.
Saturday, the Boston Globe reported that Reggie Lewis was to undergo surgery this weekend. The procedure, an implant operation to regulate the heart condition that caused him to collapse. But a spokesperson for the Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston says Lewis is not scheduled for surgery, only tests. And the man responsible for bringing Lewis to Boston, Red Auerbach, is resting comfortably tonight at Massachusetts General Hospital. Auerbach checked himself in after experiencing what he termed discomfort in his chest. The 75-year-old Auerbach has no history of heart or lung problems. He'll undergo tests tomorrow and may be released on Monday. Linda?
Causing a sudden drop in blood pressure.
These nerve endings in the heart are aware that the heart is pumping hard around them, and they say, oh, blood pressure must be too high. Let's make some adjustments. So they send signals to the brain saying, adjust. And the brain sends signals back to the heart and out to the blood vessels saying, pressure's too high, even though it really isn't. And the heart rate slows, and the blood vessels relax. And as a consequence, the blood pressure falls when it shouldn't have fallen.
Now, in effect, this is the same condition that would cause you to faint at the sight of something that disturbed you, like a needle or blood or getting up from a chair too fast. The difference is, for most people, the feeling goes away in seconds, and in Lewis's case, it caused him to pass out.
I'm curious about that panel of experts, the 12 doctors which carefully looked at Reggie Lewis. Now, they thought he had some sort of a heart problem. Could they be that wrong?
Well, Jack, many of them still do. I spoke with one of the 12 after the press conference and another doctor who was very familiar with some of his initial tests. Both say they strongly believe that Reggie Lewis has an abnormal heart, and they were very surprised by today's diagnosis of syncope. Meanwhile, doctors at the Brigham say that they feel totally confident in their diagnosis today and feel that he can go on to play basketball.
Well, let's hope that the latest prognosis is the correct one so he can come back. Lauren, thank you. Liz?
I believe that Mr. Lewis has a normal athlete's heart with normal function. Our testing showed no evidence of cardiomyopathy or abnormal, life-threatening arrhythmias. I am optimistic that under medical supervision, Mr. Reggie Lewis will be able to return to professional basketball without limitation.
So you're going to give it a shot, and if there aren't any complications, you'll expect to play next season?
I hope so. I plan on being back there next year.
Lewis said he remembers stumbling and collapsing while running down the court a week ago Thursday. Now, with this new diagnosis, would another fainting spell be the worst that could happen to Lewis if he returned to the NBA?
We will make sure that as he is followed through practice and begins to start playing competitively again, that it will be perfectly safe for him to be as active as he wants to on the court. That is our responsibility.
And what of the team of 12 noted cardiac specialists whose original diagnosis of cardiomyopathy has now been disproved?
The conclusion that we come to is a result of careful analysis of not only the data at the New England Baptist Hospital, but data at this hospital that represents a compilation of many different studies, and I believe they would come to the exact same conclusion we've come to.
Dr. Mudge, obviously very gracious there. Late this afternoon, New England Baptist released a statement saying that Brigham and Women's Hospital had an additional week to run tests on Reggie Lewis and that their tests were incomplete when Reggie abruptly left last Sunday night at 11:30. More coming up in sports, including Dave Gavitt, who was at the press conference this afternoon.
News out of the Boston Celtics over the past few weeks has been bad news. Well, finally, tonight, some good news. Reggie Lewis is going to play again. Last month against the Charlotte Hornets, Lewis collapsed on the court. He was originally believed to be suffering from a potentially career-threatening heart ailment. After getting that diagnosis, he checked himself into another hospital, Brigham and Women's Hospital. He underwent a battery of tests. Now, a cardiologist, Dr. Gilbert Mudge, says that Lewis' heart is not the source of his cardiovascular problem. He has neurocardiogenic syncope. That causes his heart rate to fall instead of increase.
Especially as we move through practice, that I am optimistic that Reggie will be able to return to normal functional activity.
Thank you.
The doctors and all the nurses, the care has just been tremendous. And I'm just glad that it's finally come to an end. But with the help of Dr. Mudge, we'll still be taking things slowly right now.
Meanwhile, Celtics president Red Auerbach underwent angioplasty today to clear a blocked artery. He's going to have the same procedure tomorrow on a second artery. Like the Celtics,
Lewis to initiate a medically supervised program, including medication. I have also encouraged him to gradually return to normal activity.
I think that's why it's taken so long for us to come up with a statement, because we wanted to be 100% sure that I will be able to go back and lead a normal life and do whatever I would like to do.
And that is good news. In the meantime, doctors say Celtics president Red Auerbach has not suffered a heart attack. Rather, he has some blockage in his coronary artery. Auerbach underwent the first of 2 balloon angioplasties this morning. He'll have the second tomorrow. 8 former greats will be enshrined this evening in Springfield. Heading the class of '93, 11-time All-Star Dr. J, Julius Erving. Among the others joining Walton and Dr. J, Ann Myers, Calvin Murphy, and Al McGuire. Talk about
not have the life-threatening cardiomyopathy and arrhythmia, but instead a treatable condition that has his heart rate and blood pressure slow down rather than speed up during peak exertion.
I am optimistic that under medical supervision, Mr. Reggie Lewis will be able to return to professional basketball without limitation.
No wonder Reggie and Donna Lewis were smiling like a pair of newlyweds today. Their lives, after being held hostage for 12 days of testing, retesting, and medical opinions, are beginning to return to normal.
It puts everything in perspective, and you learn to appreciate things a whole lot more. And just being in the hospital, having a lot of time to think about just life, thinking about just how important my son is and my wife is, I'll just learn to just appreciate that.
While Reggie was being poked and prodded, Donna felt it was her job to keep his spirits high.
Oh, I brought the baby by the hospital. He's a happy little baby. I brought a picture to the hospital and just kept him optimistic. I mean, Reggie isn't very optimistic man, and you know, we just take things as they come, and we had a lot of faith in the this week in the medical world. It's been unbelievable. I think I've got a crash course in human anatomy, and I know just about every aspect of the heart.
Your organization was due for a little good news, O'Day, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we were standing in line with our hand raised.
Only moments after the news conference ended, Reggie and Donna made a beeline to the back door. Reggie said going outside for some fresh air on a spring day takes on a whole new meaning for him now. I dare say he never enjoyed a spring day quite like this one. Meanwhile, over at Mass General, the news on Celtics president Red Auerbach is equally encouraging. Doctors found blockage of 2 of Red's arteries, but no evidence of heart damage. Auerbach underwent an angioplasty on one artery this morning and will have a similar procedure on the other tomorrow. Red could be released by week's end. And this morning, including former Celtic Bill Walton, along with Julius Erving, Calvin Murphy, Dan Issel, and Walt Bellamy. The addition of Walton brings the number to 22 Celtics in the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame dwarfs winning individual championships or individual awards, of which I've been able to do on basically all levels. And I'm very proud of those accomplishments, but they pale in comparison to the induction into the Hall of Fame. This is the greatest moment that could ever happen to me, and I'm so proud and so happy.
Football
and relate to Reggie Lewis and how good he must be feeling tonight.
And especially in light of the news he received last week. Reggie Lewis took his final test this morning, and then the news he had been hoping for was confirmed. He does not have heart disease, and he will be permitted to return to the Celtics and play next season. Now, what ails Lewis is a condition known as neurocardiogenic syncope, which is not life-threatening, and it has nothing to do with heart disease. It is a condition that causes lightheadedness or fainting.
I believe that Mr. Lewis has a normal athlete's heart with normal function.
With that one sentence came a reversal of fortune for the Celtics star. Just a week ago, it was believed Lewis had a permanent heart condition and that his playing days were over.
I am optimistic that under medical supervision, Mr. Reggie Lewis will be able to return to professional basketball without limitation.
Have you and Donna reached a conclusion that you'd like to resume playing in the NBA? In light of what's happened and all some of the frightening moments over the past 8 days?
Well, we haven't ruled it out. Quite naturally, my first instinct is to just hop right back into it. So we're just going to take it one step at a time, see how things go when I start working out, and just take it from there.
If he goes back and plays, is this the worst thing that could happen, a fainting spell on the court? Is it something that...
We will make sure that as he is followed through practice and begins to start playing competitively again, that it will be perfectly safe for him to be as active as he wants to on the court. That is our responsibility.
I think what I'm asking, though, like, could this happen again? Could he...
We will make sure by appropriate testing that it doesn't happen in a competitive situation.
And what of the team of 12 doctors that diagnosed cardiomyopathy, which would have changed his lifestyle and ended his career?
I want to emphasize that the results that we have presented to you represent our opinion and our conclusion. I cannot speak to any other conclusions of any other cardiologists involved.
Like Reggie, I mean, what do I know, but I'm completely comfortable with his explanation.
The conclusion that we come to is a result of careful analysis of not only the data at the New England Baptist Hospital, but data at this hospital that represents a compilation of many different studies, and I believe they would come to the exact same conclusion we've come to.
Bye, good luck.
Thank you.
And with that, Reggie Lewis went out the back door with his wife Donna, hopped into their car, and drove home to see their young son, Reginald. Reggie hasn't been home, since a week ago Saturday.